here's the thing. For everybody listening, don't make the same mistake the Bengals just did in any facet of your life.
People are going to get hurt. It's the hockey season.
What about the Jared Cook play on the sideline?
I was very tempted to just put defense.
I'm saying it right now. If Anthony Davis is out for the playoffs, they don't make it out of the first round.
Come on, Austin and I have been saying this ever since Joe Burrow got injured.
I don't really think the Dodgers are going to make the World Series this year. I feel like they'll make it to the NLCS.
The Fernando Tatis extension, because that really surprised me.
Like you said, Ovechkin, he's getting older. He hasn't been playing as well as I imagined. He's one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, but he hasn't started off this season as hot as I would hope.
Hi, I'm Jeff Allen, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL Opinions of the Week. I am Kevin. I'm joined by the man that I'm sure is excited for this game, but this is kind of a preview of that show, and I do think we kind of have to address the elephant in the room. Austin, I don't know how you feel about the three-peat, but I'm guessing you would be, it just bring up the discourse of, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, when we've kind of put that to bed a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be a conversation. People want to see the next GOAT happen, but yeah, I'm not rooting for either team in this game. I'm not rooting against either team in this game. I don't really care, but at the end of the day, yeah, it is going to be annoying if the Chiefs win, and that's the dialogue for a while. Yeah,
I am rooting against the Eagles just because I also do think it'd be cool to see a three-peat. And talking about the three-peat, to me, it's not like, of course, Mahomes is a great player, and they couldn't do this without Mahomes. But to me, it more goes to from a coaching and roster building standpoint.
Yeah.
Like, it's their defense.
Well, not just defense. Andy Reid's been one of the best offensive minds in football history, and that speaks to a lot of his success. He says he's going to return next year. Same thing with Travis Kelce, and I don't blame either of them because of how well they're playing. I mean, I do think that what Mahomes is doing, it's the QB in football is, I think, always a little bit overrated, and it includes Tom Brady. It's everybody, but what Andy Reid has done has been remarkable as an offensive mind. And the fact that he has a QB like Mahomes makes it a lot easier on both of them. They both make it easier on each other, and I'm definitely impressed by what they've been able to do, but I do think that people talk about Mahomes a little bit too much when it comes to their winning because, like you said, it's their defense, but it's also Andy Reid who's really led this team since he's been there.
Yeah, and kind of over the past few years, like, it's not a high-powered offense. And I think it just goes to it's a methodical offense that doesn't make that many mistakes, and they can't afford to, given just what their offense is. So to me, that's why I don't want to down, like, Mahomes makes it easy because you don't have to worry about the quarterback making bad decisions, and he does make some incredible plays, but it's really, to me, it's their defense, which kind of goes into the storyline, or we can stay on with Andy Reid. I am curious because Vic Fangio, while he struggled as a head coach, I think is a fantastic defensive mind, and he's done a lot for this Eagles defense. How does he choose to attack the Chiefs is my question. And because of course, like great offensive minds they have their plays mapped out. The first 10 to 15 plays mapped out for Andy Reid. So I'm curious, how does his drive go? And what does his drive include? Is it going to be heavy dose of running or a lot of passing? I'm going to guess running because they do have a solid run game.
Yeah, and I think the two defensive lines for both of these teams, whether it's Chris Jones or Jalen Carter or George Karlaftis or Nolan Smith, I mean, it's going to be a lot of D-line versus D-line, and I think the better of the two D-lines, whoever gets some more pressure on the QB could definitely make a huge impact on this game and the result of it. Running for both of these teams is going to be key because if you're the Chiefs, while you don't have a Saquon, you do need to supplement your passing game with the run. And if you're the Eagles, you're defined by the run, even though you have better wide receivers than the Chiefs. So it's going to be a game decided in the trenches. It always is. The Eagles, I think, had an advantage there with the better O-line, in my opinion, and the better D-line. But it doesn't guarantee a victory, especially with, again, how good the offensive and defensive minds are for the Chiefs. They can kind of close that gap talent-wise by just calling the right plays and making the right adjustments.
Yeah, I agree. And I was going to bring up the Eagles' defensive line is very good, and they have an easier matchup, I would say, especially on the tackles. Because I believe Tooney is still playing left tackle, and he's naturally a guard. So, and then you're talking about that inside has to face Jalen Carter, who's been a force. So it's going to be easier for them to generate pressure without having to blitz. But I do think they're going to blitz because you want to mess with Mahomes and have him thinking about that. Same thing on the Chiefs side, except their offensive line is so good. I think it's pretty incredible what the Eagles did. Of course, you have them alternating centers in the last playoff game, but just kind of the way they've rebounded without Jason Kelsey. And then another thing is Mekhi Becton at right guard. I remember the hopes of Mekhi Becton with the Jets, and it just didn't work out. And then he gets to Philadelphia. They move him to right guard, and he's played great for them there, and they've have a fantastic offensive line. But yeah, it is going to come down to the trenches, and specifically, that's what the Eagles have built themselves for with this edition of the Eagles with Saquon. It's just to a greater extent. But I do think they need to get the passing game, and I'm very curious. I would say Fangio and Andy Reid are established minds. Steve Spagnuolo is an established mind. He's been battle tested throughout as a defensive coach, and that he's been a huge key to the Chiefs' success. But I don't want to discredit Kellen Moore, but this is the biggest stage he's been on. And he's facing a defensive mind a great defensive mind that's going to try to take away pieces. I think the problem with Kellen Moore in the past is he sometimes just doesn't. He goes with the scheme is like, you're going to take away my wide receivers. I'm just going to run the ball. I do think he has to develop plays or just have it to where like, hey, give it to our guy because he's better than the corner. So I am curious how he plays, how AJ Brown gets involved because he is a playmaker, and I do think even though you have Trent McDuffie on him, most likely AJ Brown needs to be included in the game plan when facing the Chiefs.
I agree that he needs to be the game plan, but I will also say that because of how talented the Chiefs secondary is, it makes it tough. I mean, Jalen Watson, you already mentioned Trent McDuffie, Justin Reed at safety. They have really good secondary pieces that are going to make it tough to get any of the wide receivers, Devonta Smith or AJ Brown, involved. I think that whether or not they are able to get those guys involved definitely will determine their win, but they don't have to go for 100 yards, either of them, for them to win this game. I think they just need to not make any key drops, not make any key fumbles, and also do get them involved in the red zone, do get them involved when you need a big play, but you don't need to rely on them to be your only source of offense. And I think that's what makes it a lot. The Eagles' key to victory can be a lot of different things, like how they can win this game. I feel like there's a wider range of possibilities for how the Eagles win than how the Chiefs win, just based on how the Chiefs win games inherently. Because I could still see the Eagles, because of how good their defense is, especially their D-line, and their linebackers with Zach Bond, who I think played like the best linebacker in football this year. They have the ability to force turnovers. They're going to have the ability to get to the QB and maybe force a fumble, to sack the QB and set them back. That even if the offense isn't getting going for the Eagles, passing or rushing, that they could still methodically win this game. With the Chiefs, if the Eagles' offense gets going and they're putting up 20 points in the first half, that's concerning. I don't know if the Eagles, I think, could win a shootout. I don't think the Chiefs can win a shootout. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. They can't win a shootout because they just can't score quickly. They don't. The only true big play guy I would say they have is Xavier Worthy, and he's a rookie. Travis Kelce can like when I say maybe it's bigger than a big play, but a deep go route.
Big plays over 20 yards usually.
Yeah.
They don't have many plays like that in the playbook inherently, and no one's really breaking tackles to make it happen.
Yeah, and you got DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce are great players, but they don't have that ability after the catch. And if it's maybe 5 or more yards, like they're not going to break a couple tackles. The other thing that I'm thinking about is Saquon can take it to the house, but also that if the Eagles get up with a lead and the Chiefs need to stop Saquon or just limit him. They can't have the run game being dominant because that's going to take time away from the Chiefs offense, and they're not going to get those big plays, and they're not going to be able to do that shootout. So they have to be able to at least control the run game and not get run over, which I think they have the chance to, but it is going to be getting those key stops. And I think going to your playmakers, because I view the Chiefs are going to load the box. I think they're going to, you talked about their secondary. I think they're going to trust their secondary and go, hey, we're going to leave you one-on-one. We're going to load the box to stop Saquon. And then that's where I'm like, you just throw it up to A.J. Brown and see what he can do. Or you do it to Devontae Smith, the other side. Devontae Smith, I don't think they'll have huge games, but it's just in those critical moments, you go to them and they make that big catch while getting guarded by a great secondary. That's where I see the key. If it's a 3rd and 6, because they probably run the ball the first 2, just as a guess, and they don't get too much, because if it's 3rd and 3, they're probably it's 4 down territory, depending on where they are, but they probably run it, see if they can get 3rd down, or if they get 4th and 1, they do the tush push. So to me, that the limiting the run game and the successfulness of that will help the Chiefs, will determine what the Chiefs do, because I just don't see this offense scoring big and quickly. It's maybe they can get a couple plays, but they have to get to the other side of the field. It can't just be like at a snap of a finger, like we saw Saquon do at the beginning of the game when Washington went on that 17-play drive, and then Eagles tied up with one 60-yard run by Saquon Barkley.
And that just puts your offense that's already tired after all those plays back on the field. And it's hard to get going again. It's hard to get going. And even though you're putting on your defense back on the field, they're now pumped up because they just saw you score a long touchdown. So even though they may be a little bit more tired than the offense even, they're like, okay, they just scored. They got us now. Let's get one for them. So I also, with the Chiefs, I think we know what the storyline is going to be if they win. If they win, it's going to be about the 3P. It's going to be about Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, and Patrick Mahomes. Even if, like the first Super Bowl they won, Damian Williams, I thought should have been Super Bowl MVP. But the storyline was still obviously Mahomes' first Super Bowl. I think with the Eagles, I could see a couple of different storylines, probably like 3 different storylines, depending on how they win. If Saquon goes for 150 plus yards and 2+ touchdowns, there's no way this isn't considered, if not the best, one of the top 5 best seasons by a running back ever. And that would be the storyline. It wouldn't be Hurts. It wouldn't be Nick Sirianni. If it's a shootout and Jalen Hurts like last Super Bowl, where he had 3 rushing touchdowns, I believe, and also had a passing touchdown. So I think he had 4 touchdowns that he had contributed to. If he is another one like that, maybe the storyline is Jalen Hurts is one of the best Super Bowl performers ever. It's pretty crazy because Mahomes only has 7 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. And I think Hurts has half of that. So, maybe, does Mahomes have 1 rushing touchdown in the Super Bowl? I thought he may have had one his first time against San Francisco.
I'm trying to remember. Maybe I'm thinking of AFC Championship game. I don't know if he has a rushing one. Not
I'm
recently.
checking as we speak.
But yeah,
Okay,
no, it's been trying to think.
Okay, so in the Super Bowl, Mahomes has played 4 games. Obviously, he does have a rushing touchdown. I was right. I thought I remembered one in the first 49ers game when they were playing Jimmy G and them.
Yeah,
because I thought it was the Richard Sherman play. I thought it was where Richard Sherman could have made the tackle, but didn't want to get a penalty or whatever happened, and Mahomes scored a touchdown. So yeah, Mahomes has 8 total touchdowns, 7 passing, 1 rushing, and I believe Hurts has 4. I think he has 3 rushing and a passing. I think. I'm checking
Or
really
was
quickly.
it 2 rushing, 2 passing? Could it be?
No, I was right. One passing, 3 rushing. Is 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 passing touchdown. So in 4 Super Bowls, Mahomes has 8 touchdowns and 5 picks. Jalen Hurts has 4 touchdowns, 3 rushing, 1 passing, no picks. He does obviously have the fumble that happened. Nick Bolton, right?
Yes, Nick Bolton, who's I think a key contributor on that defense, and going to be huge with stopping the run because he's not really a pass coverage linebacker.
Yeah, and that's another one of the storylines again would be Jalen Hurts being one of the best Super Bowl performers. If he has another 4 touchdown game, and Mahomes has like 1 or 2, well, in Mahomes would have 9 or 10 touchdowns in 5 games, and Jalen Hurts could have 8. So that would be a storyline. I think the only other storyline is one of either like Nick Sirianni, because it's a grinded out game where no one really dominates, but the Eagles end up winning. Or if Zach Bond has a crazy game, one of the most surprising seasons by a linebacker ever. So I could see a lot of different storylines with how the Eagles win, depending on, like I said, they have a lot of different ways to win games. The Chiefs really they can have 2 ways of winning it. In my opinion, there's one way where they're methodical offense and are going to score around 20 to 27 points. I don't see how they scored 30, though. But 20 to 27 points. I mean, I know they did score 30 against the Bills, but the Eagles are a better defense than the Bills have. So I don't know how the Eagles give up 30 to the Chiefs based on how their offense plays. Or the other way they could win is it's a really slow, grinded out game. There's no offense, and they win like 13-10. So it's either going to be they win scoring 24 to 27, like they did last year in the Super Bowl when they scored 25, or it'll be a much lower scoring game where both offenses are kind of struggling, both defenses are dominating, and the Chiefs eke out a win. And in both of those circumstances, I think we talk about Mahomes more than we talk about the defense.
Yeah, and that's something I do think you have to talk about defense, and that's something we talked about in the predictions, where I was just like, my Super Bowl MVP, because I had the Chiefs winning, would be Chris Jones, but I knew it wasn't if the Chiefs win. But kind of, I want to pick at one of your storylines, or at least extend off it, which is if Saquon wins, of course, it would go down as great history, but it does bring into the storyline of the running back. What does a running back mean for an offense? And I do think, even though it's extending past the Super Bowl, but I do think that would kind of affect the league because it's a copycat league. So teams are going to copycat what the Eagles did, what the Chiefs are doing. Part of the Chiefs are doing for the future because they want to get to the Super Bowl. So that's a storyline that I would monitor depending on how Saquon does. And it depends on if the Eagles win. Especially with Genty coming up in the draft, and what I'm sure his value would go up if Saquon won and had a dominant game. I do think Kellen Moore could get talked about. I know you mentioned Nick Sirianni, but kind of what he has done for this offense has struggled. And there is that kind of, does he take the Saints job? This is also a guy that I had high expectations for the Chargers, and it didn't work out. Then he ends up with the Eagles, and they're a fantastic offense. Saquon has a historic season, and we'll have to see. So I do think that's another storyline. But yeah, it's Chiefs. It's pretty much set in stone. And kind of talking about the offense, there's nothing this season that shows that they can score more than 30 points. They just reached it last game. So it's really just like, it'd have to be an uncharacteristic offensive performance for them to win.
Or another one is that the defense scores a pick 6, or there's a Xavier Worthy punt return, or something like that, where there's something that's out of the control of the offense that you get more points from. I think one of my favorite, it's not a storyline per se guaranteed, but in 6 playoff games in his career, Kareem Hunt scored 8 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt scored a touchdown both of the last 2 playoff games, and he wasn't even supposed to be on any team this season. I don't think anyone was going to pick him up unless there was a lot of injuries, and there was from running backs. And now he's the starting running back. I mean, he's the one getting the more carries than Pacheco. Pacheco's really struggled ever since he came back from injury. He may still be hurting. I wouldn't be surprised if he was. And I think if you told Chiefs fans when Kareem Hunt was after his first amazing season, if you told them, hey, Kareem Hunt is going to win a Super Bowl with the Chiefs, I think they'd be like, oh, we're going to win a Super Bowl really, really soon. And they would, but it wouldn't be with Hunt. Hunt's not won a Super Bowl with them. So I think that'd be a pretty crazy full circle moment. Kareem Hunt coming back and somehow becoming out of nowhere their starting running back. This season, in the regular season, he has 7 rushing touchdowns in only 13 games. And I think it would be pretty crazy if Hunt scores a touchdown or 2 in this game to continue. Like I said, he has 8 touchdowns in 6 playoff games to continue his playoff dominance and maybe give a Super Bowl to the team that he was drafted by.
Yeah, that's a great storyline to follow. And to extend off that, yeah, he really has. It really was just like, well, there was no one else. Pacheco's injured. And they had tried Carson Steele and Samaje Perine, but they're like, we still need someone. And they go with Kareem Hunt, which I'm sure you're, of course, are aware of who got signed pretty well before Kareem Hunt got signed. Even though this kind of speaks to the management.
Who got signed before Kareem Hunt got signed?
Yeah, not to the Chiefs, but just in general. Older running back signed before Kareem Hunt. And Kareem Hunt has by far had a more successful season statistically.
Is this a Zeke thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's just kind of go. Of course, there's management, but it's kind of two like familiar running backs with teams. One still has some juice, and I do think the offensive line has helped. But yeah, he really has taken over for them. For Pacheco, he's probably still dealing with a little bit of the injury, but I think they're a great 1-2 punch, and that's something we'll have to see.
Yeah, and Hunt scored a touchdown in his last 4 games, so he's on a 4-game touchdown streak, including the playoffs. So, obviously not counting the Broncos game, Week 18, because no one played in that game. But yeah, I do think that the Chiefs have a lot of interesting players, from old veterans to rookies like Xavier Worthy. And
Juju is an old
Juju's
veteran.
back. Yeah, that's right. He's not been as productive as Hunt, but he has had some moments where you see him perform. Another funny player, a player that it's not really the most known, but I do like him because he's kind of a meme a little bit. Justin Watson. Justin Watson has now already won 3 Super Bowls, so he's the same as Mahomes, but that's because he won a Super Bowl with Brady. He was a wide receiver on the Bucs in 2020.
Watson's that?
Yeah, Watson's been in the league for 7 years. Yes. Yeah.
I did not know that. I was aware of Watson, but I did not realize. My guess was like 4 or 5, but I always thought he was with the Chiefs. I thought the Chiefs drafted him. That's incredible.
Yeah, no, he was drafted by Tampa. He was on the Tampa team that obviously won the Super Bowl with Brady. So if he won this one, this would be his 4th. And he still contributes. I mean, he started 7 games this year. He has about 300 receiving yards, 2
catches.
Say again?
He makes some key catches.
He does. And I remember last year he did have a big drop, but I think that it's funny that he would get 4 Super Bowls if he won this one. And then Joe Thuney, this would be his 5th because he won 2 with the Patriots.
Yeah. He was a key free agent signing. And then I believe they drafted Troy Smith, Creed Humphrey the following year.
Yeah.
Because it was after that 2020 loss.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. So yeah, that I do think it's going to be an exciting game. I really hope. I really hope it's a close game, and I'm hoping the Chiefs win because I think it'd be really cool to have the 3-peat. But we'll have to see. I'll let you close this one out.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Please let us know what your Super Bowl predictions are. We're doing that video next, so please catch that video as well. Please catch our next video.